What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome. It is I, the Crypto Crow. It is 9:12 at 11:34 my time, and I decided I wanted to do a video to try and explain some things to some folks, including my aunt, who I've been having a bit of a back and forth with. She's scared to death to get into the crypto space and bitcoins and all that stuff. She just doesn't fully understand. And I did that video for her last week, and it was just kind of a primer. And and then she had a list of follow-up questions, and I'm going to get to the follow-up questions in another video here soon. But this is something that I want to help put things into perspective for folks, because we're seeing like 9 different spot Bitcoin ETFs that are waiting for approval, hopefully in October, so less than a month away. And what's the big thing about a spot Bitcoin ETF? Well, it basically means that it's a paper traded vehicle. It's an exchange traded fund that ultimately allows these big institutions to gobble up a bunch of Bitcoin and maintain control of it, and then basically sell it to people on paper so that they don't have to deal with Bitcoin wallets and addresses and, messing around with exchanges or any of that. They just call their broker, their financial advisor. They say, I want some Bitcoin, or the advisor says, okay, clickety, click, 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 done. Now you own some Bitcoin. Cool. You go about your business. Right. And I think we're seeing we're going to see a significant surge in the Bitcoin market. And I think that this is going to be, and I've been working on some stuff where I'm working out, I'm like coughing out Bitcoin's price charts, and I'm going to start doing some TA here soon that I'm probably going to stay pretty consistent with once I start it. And I'm seeing that, a lot of people are calling for like a 65% drop in Bitcoin's price. And the reality is that if you look at the history, it was the last cycle into the 2021 bull peak, leading into leading into that run, we had a 60% drop right around now. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I'm saying that I am going to say on the record that I don't think that's going to happen. If we had a drop, we could see a bit of a drop leading into some of these spot ETFs kicking off, maybe trying to accumulate some stuff. I mean, they might be loading up now, looking to drop the price so that they can pick it up over the counter at discounts. Because here's the thing, it might take $25 million, right, to move Bitcoin's price by, $1,000. I haven't calculated it out recently. I'd have to look at the order books and do a bunch of number crunching. But at one point I looked, and I think it would have taken like around $23 million in order book activity to move the price of Bitcoin by $1,000. And if you figure at the same time, a lot of these exchanges out there, they all share a liquidity pipeline, which means that a lot of the price action and price data that they're working with is coming from another central exchange. Like they might be coming from Coinbase's price action or a Binance price action. And these exchanges make really, really tiny fractions of fees based off of the trade volume of the exchanges using their liquidity pipeline and their data, right? Because it effectively lets them run an exchange without having to hire market makers. So what you see on one exchange is very likely it's kind of a universal thing. You'd say, well, wouldn't it only take $23 million to move it just on that one exchange? Well, yes and no. It depends on what exchange it is. And a lot of that stuff. But ultimately, it could very easily be, well, if you're moving the price on this exchange, it's also going to move the prices on all the others, because that's how they're pulling in the order book data, right? Now, to that effect, as that price is moving, what we're seeing is there's a likelihood that some of these institutions have either already accumulated at the low, have been waiting. They already have Bitcoin at a much more valuable price, but they're going to need substantially more, at which point they could potentially dump the market to get the price lower so that then they could go over the counter and buy at substantial discounts. Let's say some of these spot ETFs, maybe they were to dump enough Bitcoin to drop the price to 20,000 again, or even back down to 15,000, which I think 15,000 is around the 60% mark from where we're at. So I'm not saying that that's not possible. And I'm explaining to you why that could potentially happen, though I don't think it will. But if they spent, I don't know, $20 million, or let's just say they even spent $1 billion. Maybe they all work together and they moved the price down like 15 grand again, or they just started a catalyst for where they dropped the price substantially. Maybe they dropped it back down to 20 grand, and then the retail market decided to start panic selling, right? They don't even have to put that much money in. All they have to do is really plant the seed, and the dumb money goes berserk and they start freaking out and they start basically following suit. So they could plant that seed for, $100 million. Well, let's just say they need $5 billion worth of Bitcoin for their ETF. Well, that's a really good way of doing it. They can push the price down by planting a catalyst for the retail market to react to that. And then they go into these over-the-counter brokers and buy the Bitcoin back at a discount plus whatever else they need, minus probably a few points for buying in bulk from over-the-counter brokers. Right? So that's how that could potentially come about. And so I'm not saying that that's not a possibility. I'm just saying that given the current climate, I'm not necessarily sold on that actually happening. Why? Well, because if I look at the 2017 market, it's very different than the 2021 market. The price activity of today is a lot more in line with the 2017 run, like 2016 into 2017. So the 2016 halving. If you look at the charts, the price action is very similar to what we're seeing today. And what we got after that was a very powerful parabolic run in one straight line all the way to the peak of like 20 grand. In the 2021 market, we had a lot of volatility. We had a lot of indecision, a lot of inactivity, and a lot of just wonky stuff going on to the point where we had a two-peak market. And we had one peak, the price came down about halfway and then peaked up again for a new high before it completely crashed and started the bear market. And I don't see the same things happening in this cycle that we did the last time. One of the main reasons is because of the number of spot ETFs that are very likely going to be coming into fruition here in the not so distant future. Likely a few or a handful of them could potentially be approved in October. So what does all this mean? In the grand scheme of things, I believe that Bitcoin is actually being priced out of just middle America. Like Middle Earth is getting ready to lose their opportunity to accumulate Bitcoin at all. Now, is that the end all be all? No, because in a sense, even if you get priced out of Bitcoin, there's still things like Cardano, right? And this isn't a Cardano video, but when Cardano's trading at 25 cents, and, let's just say it goes up to $5 or $6 in the next year and a half or so, you're going to do very, very well. And it will allow you to ultimately jump back into the Bitcoin market at a future date at the higher prices, right? So you have vehicles that can very well be a catalyst for people that don't necessarily have because honestly, the growth of Cardano's price action and a lot of the other altcoins in the market, once Bitcoin has risen, the profit from that typically flows into the altcoin market for multiple gains, right? And so even if you miss the Bitcoin train, if you're researching and studying and you're strong on fundamentals for different altcoin assets, chances are you're going to do very well there as well. But I am definitely becoming one to say I'm all about Bitcoin and Cardano personally. And I think that obviously there are a lot of other altcoins. IAG, I think, is going to be a good one. AGI, obviously, I love Kopi token. I love World Mobile token, just a lot of the stuff that's coming out on the Cardano blockchain. And granted, there's a lot of garbage on Cardano too. So, and where I'm going to be covering those in future videos. But ultimately, I'm going to show you guys now what we're talking about in terms of pricing itself out of the middle America, so to speak. If you look at November 17th of 2021, Bitcoin's price was just $2. Okay. It's crazy to think, but not that long ago, Bitcoin was only $2. And then we have a percentage of growth, which I have as a base because it hasn't grown anywhere. But the average medium income at the time was about $43,000. So at the time, $2 was like 0.004% of the average annual income at the time. And then when it peaked out in 2013, it peaked out at $1,163, which was still only 2.5% of the average income of America at the time. So in November 2025 of 2013, Bitcoin's price peaked out at just around 2.5% of the average annual income of America. Now, if we move forward, January 12th of 2015, the average income had gone up by about $3,000 a year, but the percentage growth over the previous low. So the previous low, I think I did actually measure that out, but it was up 7,450%. Okay, so this is the you'll notice like the orangish color, those are the lows of each cycle. The green is the peaks of each cycle. Nobody ever talks about the percentage in growth of the bottoms, because if you look on a logarithmic scale over a weekly chart, you can see that Bitcoin's growth is basically a very steady trend line to the upside, never really going below the previous bottom. It doesn't happen. It consistently grows cycle after cycle, year after year. And everybody talks about diminishing returns of the peak of Bitcoin, which is fine. Yes, that's true. But that the diminishing returns doesn't really mean much if you go from 20 grand to 65 or $70,000 in a matter of just 4 years. The diminishing return over time yes, it diminishes, but if a $1 million asset goes to $5 million and you're only getting a 5x return or a 500% return, do you care that somebody who bought Bitcoin at $2 got a 1,500% return or 2,000 or 40,000? No, nobody cares. It doesn't really matter. Diminishing returns, it doesn't matter. What matters ultimately is the bottom of each cycle and how that growth continues to rise year after year, cycle after cycle. So if we look at December 11th of 2017, Bitcoin peaked out at around $19,700. That is a 1,593% increase over the peak of the previous cycle in 2013. And it was average medium income was $50,000. The peak of Bitcoin in 2017 was almost half of your average annual income in America. Okay. But they got another opportunity. It dropped all the way back down in 2018. It dropped down to $3,123 as a low. The average income went up about $2,000 a year, whoop-de-doo, but the price of Bitcoin had dropped all the way back down to just 6% of that income. So basically what you're seeing is a consistent growth cycle after cycle. Every new low is higher than the previous, and it's still growing much more than the average annual income is in this country. Now, mark that in with inflation and higher interest rates and everything else, and you can see this is the time, folks. This is the time, because you have the roadmap plotted right in front of your very eyes, and it's undeniable, okay? 2021, Bitcoin peaked at $69,000 roughly, depending on the exchange you're looking at. 250% over the previous peak in 2017. 250% higher than the previous peak of 2017 at the average income of $60,575 a year. This is the first time that Bitcoin's price has broken, and it costs more to own one Bitcoin than the average American makes in just 1 year, at 113, almost 114% of Americans' average income. However, once again, you got another opportunity. Price trading at 15,548 with the new low of 2022. And you know what? 397% higher than the previous low. Still pretty significant growth there. And now it's just 25% of the average annual yield. And then where do we go from here? So that's the question. Where do we go from here? Well, likely for many that aren't paying any attention, you're not going to go anywhere, because you're going to continue watching these numbers climb year after year, cycle after cycle, and you're obviously going to continue missing this boat over and over and over again, because you You either believe a lot of the narratives that the major media put out, or even a lot of the paid crypto media who like to favor particular venture capitalist interest tokens because this media space is being paid for. Listen, there are a lot of people that consider, YouTube influencers shills, but the reality is, you might read that about this influencer or that influencer. Oh, he was paid to talk about this token or whatever. First of all, we disclose all of that. Okay. Anytime, the majority in the US, there are a lot of people outside of the US that don't disclose anything. And I just never pay attention watching them because I don't trust anything they say, to be honest. I'm just being real about it. Nothing personal. I know they don't have to say anything, and they don't. And I know who a lot of them are. I don't bother with them. But the reality is that I got news for you. When any major advertising player is buying consistent ad space to promote a particular asset in the market, if you don't think that asset is going to get unsponsored favor in those mediums, you're absolutely nuts. We have seen that play out in substantial ways just in the last few years in other arenas as well. Money talks, bullshit walks, and that is what controls the universe. Okay. So, some of these companies are paying to put out content or articles saying, remember all of the content, everything, Jamie Dimon, a lot of these big players in the institutions, how they were trying to dump on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, threatening to fire anybody that owned any in a personal portfolio, really just trying to FUD it, because they didn't want it to go up before they had their own investment vehicles in place. Okay. Now that they have those investment vehicles in place, Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million. Bitcoin could go to $3 million. What's the potential market cap of Bitcoin in the future? 5 trillion, 10 trillion, $100 trillion. And think about it also. If you look at what BlackRock is doing, basically spearheading the efforts to generate or to get approved for one of the first spot Bitcoin ETFs, all the while proclaiming that it's just a matter of time until all traditional assets, from real estate to the stock market, will be tokenized. How do you think they are looking at Bitcoin as a reserve asset currency when the entire global market is likely to be tokenized in the very near future, whether it's through real estate NFTs, tokenized stocks, NFT stocks, you name it? All of that money is going to flow in and out of what? It's not going to be gold, and it's probably not going to be the dollar. It's going to be Bitcoin. And that is when Bitcoin's mass adoption will begin to erupt, and Bitcoin will start heading towards $1 million plus per Bitcoin. This is definitely a time to start looking into, listen, you've got until April of 2024 to try and get at least a Bitcoin in your wallet and store it and put it away. Carve your seed phrase into a wooden board and build a house around it. I don't know what you got to do to keep it safe, but keep it safe and keep it, because ultimately that Bitcoin is very well going to be the retirement plan of everyone that's holding Bitcoin today and tomorrow. And then once this market peaks out, probably in somewhere, I don't know, November of 2025 or thereabouts, December, November, we'll see what plays out. That's going to be an opportunity potentially to one of two things. One, sell at the peak, reaccumulate at a lower price like I did this previous cycle. I've already averaged in. I've been averaging back into Cardano since it was 50 cents. I'm very fine. I'm very happy with that. It's okay that it's half of what I started with. Just average down. I'm lowering my overall buy-in price so that I'm at profit sooner when the market turns. But I've also accumulated Bitcoin, and I continue to do so. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy with that. And it doesn't matter to me if the price continues to drop, because I understand the cycles. I understand what's coming. And I do believe wholeheartedly that it is going to continue putting me into a position of financial freedom, the likes of which the majority of Americans are never going to see again. This is the last opportunity, I believe, especially as we get closer to 2020 or 2030 rather, and the entire world is going to change on a dime. And I think that the foundation for all of that is happening right before our eyes right now, whether we want to see it or not. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So if you missed the Bitcoin boat, you've always got assets like Cardano and some others that are going to continue doing very well, laying laying down the pipe for layer 3 or layer 1 third generation technology that's going to take things from the Bitcoin era and the Ethereum era to the Cardano era of true decentralization, true DeFi, true application, and ultimately, even though it's not a part of the grand narrative of Cardano right now, a currency. And I do believe that a lot of the fundamental foundations that are being laid out on a global scale right now with Cardano are going to put it into a position where not only is it going to be utilized for a lot of applications from DeFi, finance, NFTs, native assets, all of that, governance, voting, all of that. I do believe that at some point we're going to see Cardano being used more and more as a currency as well. And I think that's a key thing to start looking towards. So until next time, guys, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you. If you're curious, check out justonesecret.com, where I'm going to be working on. It's a whole new project. I'm going to start showing people how I'm doing it. It's the whole site is an affiliate site for a bunch of products I actually do like a lot. My wife has lived on them. My mother-in-law has been on them for over a year. My mother-in-law has been losing a lot of weight. I take some of the stuff for energy. My wife has been taking like the Mojo coffee and all that. Check it out, justonesecret.com. And finally, my wife and I are going to be launching a channel together, and I think you guys are going to get a kick out of it. I'm going to be setting that up very soon. I will notify everyone. Maybe I'll even post a comment under this video and pin it so that everyone can follow it when I get it set up. We're just going to be doing back and forth live interviews with each other. We're going to react to stuff. We're going to talk about the goings on in the world. And, you know, my wife is just like me. She's just a midget version of me. She's only 5 foot. But she talks, you know, she calls it as she sees it. And we definitely don't always agree. But the core of us are very much in line with one another. All the ancillary stuff we like to bicker about all the time, but we get a kick out of it. I'm sure you will too. Until next time, guys, crow your coins, and I'll see you soon.